We're with Dr. Pauline Leong this morning for Frontpage. Dr. Pauline, thank you so much for joining us this morning on the Light Breakfast.
Yes, thank you for having me.
All right, let's get to our first article. Now, the Minister in the Prime Minister's Department has revealed that if a snap election is called nationwide, it would cost the government about 1.2 billion ringgit. So, would a snap election be the best interests of the rakyat or the economy, especially during this MCO recovery time?
Yeah, I think that the rakyat right now is really concerned about the impact of COVID-19 on health and economy. A lot of jobs have been lost and people are actually struggling, to find financially as well. So having a snap poll might cause a lot of uncertainty to the business sector, which needs stability to operate. Yeah, and I think also people are a bit fed up with the politicking. They want to, basically concentrate on getting their feet back together, and also because of all the politicking, they find that maybe they're a bit turned off. So having a snap elections, they might in fact be turned off and may not even vote because they might find that their votes don't really matter. So the focus is actually different right now. So a snap election might be very distracting, in my opinion.
When would be the right time for this, though? Is there ever a right time?
I think that it's every 5 years. So I think that perhaps the rakyat might want to just wait until the next round, because we are now having the Sabah elections, and in between we had a lot of by-elections as well. So I think that maybe the rakyat wants to just see it through, and then the next round, in about 2 years' time, I think. So maybe in 2 years' time, we would have more or less stabilized, and people might be more open to, you have to have the elections by in 2 years' time anyway, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
So we shall see in 2 years' time. And apparently, because why is it 1.2 billion? It's because of all these SOPs that you have to be put in place because of COVID-19. If we do have the snap polls at this moment in time.
Yeah.
But you know what? Even if we do this, we don't know how things are going to be eventually anyway. The SOPs might still be in place, right? So it might still cost the same amount of money. Okay, cool.
In fact, it might cost more than. So we don't know. But elections will cost. I mean, democracy is such that, it will cost some money. So it depends on whether you're going to bite the bullet then or now.
Now, let's talk about penguins and rats and how they're not exactly friends, especially in Zoo Negara. So with Zoo Negara being such a popular tourist destination, would they actually benefit from the government stepping in to assist with sort of like a revitalization project, maybe?
Zoo Negara is currently managed by an NGO, I believe, Malaysian Zoological Society. So I think the government can step in to assist, provide a lot of expertise, and but not to take over the operations. What they could do is maybe to have an advisory body. With the government, they can connect with zoos overseas, and get professional expertise and advice, and they could also work with different ministries, to help to improve the situation, from not just from the maintenance, but also marketing as well. We could look at, maybe the Singapore Zoo's wildlife reserves. They are self-funding, right? It was previously set up, as a part of the Singapore government, but it's now been given its ability to run on its own, and it manages 4 zoos: Singapore Zoo, Night Safari, River Safari, and Jurong Bird Park. So that's one model we could think of, along that lines.
But what Singapore does is they get corporate sponsorship in, right? Didn't we just get corporate sponsorship for Zoo Negara?
I'm not sure. I didn't really follow everything about it, but I think maybe more, not just corporate sponsorship, but they also have programs like I think in Singapore we have Friends of the Zoo.
Yep.
So they have more interesting, like for example in China, right? What they would have is online, like a live stream of the animals.
Oh, right. Yeah, we heard about that.
Yeah. So when you have, and not just that, during the MCO period, right, there were a lot of zoos that also have live stream of their penguins, live stream of the different animals. So, while you're locked down, you look at these animals, and this is actually marketing, very good marketing, because once the kids see these animals, then they'll say, hey, Mom and Dad, can we go and, see the Zoo Negara animals after MCO? So it creates a lot of buzz and excitement. So this is one way of marketing which could be done, but I don't see it happening in Malaysia. Yeah.
Yeah, the problem is this is not the one and only zoo that we have here in Malaysia. There are other zoos around the country, and also like other reserves and wetlands and all that people can enjoy seeing animals at a much closer proximity, I guess, compared to the zoo. So there are lots of other options. So what can Zoo Negara do to sort of alleviate their status as like the first place people will go to want to go see animals?
You need to create a lot of buzz marketing, I think. You need to have new programs that come out. Like if you look at the wildlife reserves in Singapore, right, they had this Aming, they had breakfast with orangutan, and that orangutan Aming, right, it's a Sumatran orangutan, and she was like a star. She had breakfast with celebrities that came in. So it's about marketing. Right. So if you have a celebrity, a star, everybody want to come in there. So, we have our, when we had our pandas come in, but that's it, we don't hear any more publicity about them. Right. It was just a one-off thing. So it must be sustained. So every time you have a new animal or feature different animals of the month, for example. So every month you have a different animal, so, you have people coming in and getting excited about the different animals. And it's also part of education. So we think of it as education, like having not just corporate sponsorships, but maybe partnering with schools, have a school program when people come in, during school holidays, right? So it's about thinking out of the box, basically.
Now, in this article for Malaysian employees, apparently flexi hours, work-life balance were the top reasons for their job satisfaction, and salary levels was the leading cause of dissatisfaction at work. Now, we all know that the cost of living is increasing, but salaries, they don't move up that much in comparison. So should the government look into increasing the minimum wage to a figure maybe well over 2,000 ringgit for everyone to be able to live comfortably, I guess?
Yeah. Okay. The whole issue of minimum wage has been, talked about a lot. And I think recently, at last year or this year, they increased it from 1,100 to 1,200. Okay. Of course, any talk about the minimum wage will cause concern to the businesses because they afraid that, it might increase business operations costs. But so I think that, when it comes to discussion of minimum wage, right, we need to also talk about increased productivity. Right. So if we can show to the businesses that increases in wage actually improves productivity, right, then they will be more open towards giving more having higher minimum wage. Yeah, so there is this balancing act that has to be done, when you talk about minimum wage. I think that 2,000 ringgit might cause a heart attack to businesses. I think I was looking through, I think Pakatan Harapan in their manifesto talked about 1,500, and even that there was a lot of debate. Right, but I do understand that cost of living is really high, and 1,200 actually, especially if it's in a city area, right, it's really tough to live on. So I'm not an economist and I'm not in HR. So this is something that as a layperson, I think that there needs to be a discussion with the experts about this, economic wise.
But how can we improve productivity? It's like a double-edged sword. You don't increase the wage, so people think that, I'm earning so little only, I'm not gonna work as hard. But how are you gonna ask them to work harder so that you can get more money?
Maybe like if they can invest in training or invest in, let's say, automation or something like that. So in other words, the skill level that is needed, right, improves. Right. So if the person upgrades and see that, okay, my job is going to be like, I need to improve myself. So if you give training, right, then if the person, after the training, the person, improves the productivity, then, you can give higher wages. So I'm not an expert in this. So I think that, upskilling is one thing. Upskilling will help to improve productivity.
Yeah, definitely. Now, let's get to another article for this second part. The HR minister is actually under fire from people, online for his statement. But I mean, in this COVID-19 times, isn't it true to have any job is better than to have no job at all? Do you agree with his statement, Pauline?
I think that when you're desperate, it would seem as though you would want to have any job. But my concern here is that will some people use this as a situation to exploit people? I was on Facebook recently and I saw a post, that there was some publisher who wanted to only pay like ringgit, 8 to 12 ringgit per illustration. So imagine if you're a graphic artist and you spend like a week or so designing something and you only paid like 8 to 12 ringgit. isn't that undercharging for the creative effort put in?
Yeah.
So in other words, creative people like the writers as well. Imagine you're being paid like 200 for a 1,500 word or 2,000 article. Isn't it undercharging you? So some people in that situation, I might as well not do it because it's really not worth the effort. Right, so it really depends on the person, some person, So in other words, we talk about minimum wage, right? We have to give credit for people for the efforts, you see, rather than exploit them.
Yeah. All right, this next article is interesting. 2 Perikatan National MPs today actually decried excessive logging activities in the country. And now one of the MPs even called for a total ban on logging for 6 months to preserve forests. I mean, will banning logging help solve our environmental problems? And it's only for 6 months. What difference would it make?
Yeah, I echo you, Bel. Banning logging for 6 months, I don't think will make much difference. It's just a stopgap. It's like it's leaking, and then we just stop it for a while, and then after it will, leak again. So I think it was just a statement to perhaps appease criticisms and deflect attention. For me, right, there has to be a sustainable, comprehensive plan. I think the UN talks about sustainable development. Right, so I think that logging could be one of those things that could be under sustainable development and forest preservation. And I think that there also must be a change of mindset, because we need to understand that the forest, the jungle itself is not just a resource to be exploited. It is also home for many of the orang asli, orang asal, home for our animals as well. So we talk about Zoo Negara, right? We don't want to come to one day where we only be able to see, animals in zoos. Right, we want to have animals also, biodiversity, etc. It's very important in forests. So we need to also think of forests as not just timber, but forests contain a lot of the ecosystem, and it's actually at the lungs of the world, of our lungs in that sense. So there has to be a change of mindset. It's not to be just exploited alone for financial gain.
But I mean, in our developing world, where timber is needed for a wide host of applications, like what are the alternatives to logging? Like how can we get our wood products without cutting down some trees,
I think that a lot of trees have been cut already. So there are, like secondary forests. So there could be reforestation, like growing trees so that you don't cut new ones, but cut the ones that you've grown. So that's one way. The other alternatives that I went to search on yesterday was that, sometimes we need pulp, So there are things like bamboo, flax, and hemp, and, and they have natural fibers to make pulp for paper. So we could use alternatives, try to find alternatives to our paper needs. Yeah.
Now the thing is, though, as far as I know right now, the rule, I suppose, in Malaysia is if you cut down one tree, you plant back one more tree. But does that solve the problem, or should we be following like the international UN standard where I think it's 1 to 3?
Oh, I think for MPP, no, for the 1 to 3, that I'm not so sure. But I think that, I guess if we want, we have like I said, minimum wage. Those are these are minimum standards, I guess, in Malaysia. Yeah. So, right. So if you want to up the standard, then I guess 1 to 3 would be a good idea.
Now, Russia became the first country in the world to register their COVID-19 vaccine as fit for mass consumption. This is after just 2 months of human trials. Now, there's been a constant race, right, to obtain this COVID-19 vaccine between various countries. Would it serve us better, humanity better, if all of these countries were just to collaborate and work on a proper vaccine together?
Of course, it's good, that we can collaborate, but I think that's easier said than done because of the international politics. Right, so each country has its own agenda, and all of them have some sort of rivalry, perhaps, with each other. And also the other thing is that some of their work that they do in their labs and in their hospitals, some of it might be confidential. So if you're actually collaborating, it means that you're allowing the other country to peek into your scientific and technical capabilities, and some of them are worried, that, okay, if they know what we're doing, what happens to our security? Right, so that's one point. And the second point would be the intellectual property. If everybody collaborates and it works, who owns it? Who makes money from it? How are they going to share profits? What about the IP rights? So it's very complicated. So all this comes into play when they decide, whether they want to work together, because working together means I'm opening up, you know, what I have to you, and am I ready to show you what I'm wearing?
Is it all about making money though, this race?
I think that money is a very important element because they are actually investing money into these clinical trials, etc. So science is not cheap. So a lot of companies spend a lot of money making vaccines, making medicines, and not all medicines work. So when they so if it doesn't work, the money is sort of like gone down the drain. So they were betting on this to make it work, so that they would allow them to have profits that they could fund for other research as well. So money is a very important aspect when it comes to, you know, medicine and vaccines. Yeah.
If there were to be human trials to be done in Malaysia, though, would you like? I'm actually interested to be a guinea pig, actually, to see whether it would work. Would there be something that you would consider, Dr. Pauline?
I need to see what they plan to do, but but I do have a trust in our health ministry. They've been following quite strictly the protocols, you know.
Yeah.
So if they can show me exactly what they plan to do, etc., you know, why not? You know, yeah, but they have to, you know, basically follow the standard ordering procedures, then follow the scientific, you know, methods, you know. So and so just don't simply just, you know, use people as guinea pig. There have to be proper protocols that have to be followed.